Treasure Island has been strangely significant in my life. I directed a BBC adaptation of the novel by Robert Louis Stevenson, and then sailed into a Treasure Island some years later, only to discover that Robert Louis Stevenson and his wife Fanny and their son Lloyd had visited that island before me. They had arrived there in a trading ship called the Janet Nicole on their way to Samoa, and spent a week or so there. Fanny Stevenson, who was also a successful writer, wrote of the island, "It is the most romantic island in the world." Clearly, it is not the island that Robert Louis wrote about in Treasure Island, his novel, because that's in the Caribbean, and the attributes of a Caribbean island and a South Pacific atoll are entirely different. Suvaroff really is a treasure island, in as much as in the mid-19th century a ship was carrying out salvage work on one of the reefs, and they discovered an iron-bound box, and in that iron-bound box were gold coins, silver coins, jewellery and stuff worth 3.5 million quid at today's prices. Later, in 1876, one Henry Mayer was on the island with some other people doing some work, and he discovered a turtle had dug a hole on the beach to lay eggs, and in that hole was a chest containing jewellery, brooches, coins and all the rest of it. He didn't want to tell his colleagues about this, so he took the box and he buried it somewhere else on one of the islands on the atolls, made a very careful written note of exactly where it was, put it in his wallet, went back to New Hebrides, where he was murdered. And nobody has ever found that written note of where that treasure is, except there's a guy called Tom Neal who lived on the island for several years and wrote a book about it, and lived a very puritanical, purist, single lifestyle. The reality, most people now believe, is that he spent the whole time searching for Mr. Mayer's treasure, which he never found. When you approach, the Pacific is of course tidal, so the reef, the coral reef all the way around the edge, can be just a mass of surf, or sometimes you can see it as land. I found it very difficult to find the entrance when we arrived in daylight. There was 20-25 knots blowing, which is not unusual around there. And for the life of me, I couldn't see the entrance. Fortunately, I had a brilliant crew on board called Alice, and her dad had taught her orienteering, and from the chart and from her orienteering experience, she guided Bambola, my Moody 36, round to where the pass is into the lagoon. It was of course about a mile off the position, the GPS position I had from my chart, because of course my GPS was totally accurate, and the guy who plotted the position of the pass with his sextant was a mile out. Well, I think he was pretty good with his sextant. Suvaroff was discovered in 1814 by a Russian freighter called Suvaroff, which in turn was named after the apparently very, very famous Russian general of that name. The guys on the ship saw a huge flock of birds, headed out to that flock of birds to see why there was a flock of birds there, and they discovered the atoll. I can only repeat the words of Fanny Stevenson and say it is the most romantic island in the world.
The entrance to the lagoon is difficult and challenging. There's no buoyage, and because Suvorov is an atoll, an island on a reef that fringes a lagoon, it's hard to locate the pass, which is lumpy and quite narrow. A reliable engine is essential, together with eyeball navigation and pilotage. Once inside, it's very different. The water's calm and translucent. The island of Suvorov is my idea of the most beautiful island in the world. Take but nothing, leave but footprints. It's now only inhabited by a couple of Cook Island Park rangers. There are only ever a few yachts anchored in the lagoon, and it is the most delightful meeting place that you can imagine. Bambola lies at anchor in this paradise, but around her hull swim some seriously large sharks. They look ferocious, and as we discover, if you throw scraps of waste food overboard after meals, they scavenge around the yacht all day long. All shapes and sizes, the lagoon is full of sharks, but none of us had a problem with them. We swam every day. The shallow waters also hold some threat to the unwary. None of them aggressive, unless you don't see them and step on them. This stonefish has a particularly venomous spike on its back, and the sea snake will finish you off if it manages to get hold of you. Mind you, it has a very small mouth. The stonefish with its pretty fins is a much bigger danger. The spike in its back will penetrate sandals, and you simply can't see it when they're motionless. You don't have to be an ornithologist to be impressed by the bird life. Amazing variations in one spot. These boobies just sat in their bush demanding food from any passing bird or person. The noise from the rest of the colony was not just because of my presence. It seemed to go on all day. I suppose if you just lay your eggs in between some stones, it's hard to know which one is yours. You land and start looking for an egg. Or is that too simplistic? Of all the places I've sailed to, this is truly the perfect desert island. What dreams are made of. We headed out west-southwest bound for Tonga. Fishing from a sailing boat rolling in the ocean swell is quite an exercise, even on calm days. This magnificent mahi-mahi is only one of many that we caught. It's a golden rule in Bambola that we only fish when we need to eat and never for sport.
I hope you've enjoyed this glimpse of cruising life. I've certainly enjoyed revisiting the video and sharing it. Please press the subscribe button on the screen, and then you'll be notified when I release or publish another video, and it will help me grow my channel. What follows next is a little plug for my books and publications, which you really don't have to watch. If you have been watching this and have enjoyed it or found it interesting, then I'm absolutely delighted and most grateful. Fair winds and safe landfalls.